Hello and welcome to Reviews in Review, the show that recaps every single video game that IGN reviewed over the previous month. September was a huge month for game releases, and there were a ton of games that we loved, and some games that we didn't love so much, so let's get right into it. Gabriel Moss gave Baldo the Guardian Owls a 4, stating that aggravating bugs, shoddy design, and technical issues hold back this vast action-adventure RPG filled with puzzles and treasures. Luke Riley gave Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions a 4. Luke said that it's easy to pick up and play, but has very little to keep folks hanging around, even for Rocky and Creed Saga superfans. Jared Green gave the Dark Fable shooter Clid the Snail a 5, stating that the decent dialogue and a basic but satisfying story can't make up for the shallow level design, dumb enemy AI, and aggravating encounters. Kyle Campbell gave Aragami 2 a mediocre 5 out of 10, stating that although the stealth action game's serpentine levels are fun to sneak around in, a needlessly drawn out campaign rife with frustrating combat and game-ending glitches prevent it from being a tale worthy of song. Luke Riley gave Skatebird a 5. Luke wasn't impressed with this arcade skateboarding game's crude skating mechanics, uninspired objectives, and regularly frustrating camera, even if the game does have a lot of charm. Leanna Hafer gave King's Bounty 2 a 6. Leanna thought the tactical RPG game was fairly strong, but dragged down by mediocre plot and a lot of unnecessary jogging. She added that she wouldn't warn anyone away from checking it out if they're really interested, but she wouldn't advise them to go out of their way for it either. Sarah LaBouffe gave the ball-rolling action puzzle game Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania a 6. Sarah said that the over 300 stages compiled and upgraded from previous entries meant the game had plenty to do, but that the levels quickly become repetitive and frustrating, and the bright, cheerful environments and silly characters aren't enough to combat the tedium of retrying aggregating levels. Tom Marks gave the frantic party game collection WarioWare Get It Together a 7 out of 10. Tom loved the single-player mode, calling it an absurd delight and a lot of fun, but noted that the multiplayer modes kind of drop the ball and lack staying power. Ricky Freck gave NBA 2K22 a 7, stating that the latest entry in the annual basketball simulation series makes some welcome changes to its on-court action, but that it's also held back by technical issues, questionable choices, and an overuse of microtransactions in several of the modes. Travis Northup gave I Am Fish a 7, calling the fish out of water action puzzle game a wacky, hilarious, and sometimes agonizing experience that's still well worth the time for those with a stomach for it, even with its intentionally maddening controls and platforming gimmicks. Tristan Ogilvie gave Lost Judgment a 7. Tristan thought the latest entry in this Yakuza spin-off series was intriguing, but ultimately had a main story that failed to sustain its suspense all the way to the finish. Travis Northup gave Sable a 7 out of 10, noting that this beautiful minimalist voyage was held back by technical issues, a wonky camera, and bland puzzles, but that when those issues managed to fade into the background, Travis found himself mesmerized by Sable's bizarre world of creepy worms, masked weirdos, and hover bikes. Tristan Ogilvie gave Death Stranding Director's Cut a 7 out of 10, calling this enhanced version of the 2019 game the most feature-rich and accessible version of Death Stranding yet. Tristan added that although this version is more accessible than the original, the powerful new cargo-moving tools diminish the frustration at the cost of any sense of hard-earned gratification, making it all feel like a compromised version of the director's vision. Jordan Alleman gave FIFA 22 a 7, saying that even though the virtual football game doesn't reinvent the ball, this year's FIFA is still one of the most nuanced and enjoyable multiplayer sports games on the market, although its microtransactions and loot boxes are still a problem in FIFA 22. John Bolden gave the remastered action RPG Diablo II Ressurected a 7 out of 10. John thought it masterfully preserved the mood of the original, and at the same time it preserves the gameplay as it has been for over a decade, mostly for the better, occasionally for worse, and that parts of that gameplay that were standard 20 years ago just look bad now or feel like a waste of our time. Tristan Ogilvie gave the adventure platformer The Artful Escape an 8. Tristan found it to be a truly joyful musical journey through outer space in which the performance of its cast and the quality of its soundtracks are every bit as stellar as the eye-popping celestial realms it crisscrosses through. Luke Raleigh also reviewed the rally racing game WRC10 and gave it an 8, saying it's another successful example of KT Racing's commitment to fantastic stage design and frantic, fast-paced, and occasionally unforgiving fun, even if it still makes some of the previous game's minor mistakes. Mitchell Saltzman gave Sonic Colors Ultimate an 8, saying that this enhanced remake of the high-speed original introduces unremarkable new content, but that the base game remains one of the best examples of how a modern Sonic game should be. Rebecca Valentine gave Tome an 8. Rebecca thought the short but satisfying photography adventure game was packed with witty writing, goofy yet grounded characters, and a wealth of interesting, picturesque moments to capture. Gabriel Moss gave Lost in Random an 8 out of 10. Gabriel said the game was a delightful, sprawling action-adventure set in a dark but fun Tim Burton-esque universe, and that even though its combat doesn't always hold up, exploring its worlds absolutely does. John Bolding gave Eastward an 8. John called the adventure RPG a delightful journey from beginning to end with charming characters and beautifully animated vistas to explore. Mitchell Saltzman gave Kena Bridge of Spirits an 8. He thought this open-world action game had solid combat, fantastic world design, and a great balance of action, platforming, puzzle solving, and exploration, resulting in an adventure that harkens back to the days of the N64 and GameCube era Zelda's, Okami, and Star Fox adventures. Travis Northup gave World War Z Aftermath an 8, which is great on the IGN scale. He said that Aftermath evolves World War Z in some major ways, and the improved melee options and first-person mode are great quality of life improvements, but there are still issues with online play, storytelling, and bizarre design choices that are huge disappointments. Tom Marks gave Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye an 8. Tom thought this new DLC expansion for 2019's first-person adventure puzzler was a wonderful return to the clockwork solar system of Outer Wilds, even if its occasional horror game sections aren't quite as interesting as what came before. Rowan Kaiser gave Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous an 8, pointing out that the enormous new role-playing adventure has a lot of depth and strong turn-based combat, calling it the next big ambitious isometric RPG. Taylor Lyles gave Life is Strange True Colors a 9, calling this adventure mystery game the best game in the series to date, and praising it for being fantastic with a great story and solid pacing. Terrence Wiggins gave Tales of Arise a 9 out of 10. Terrence called Bandai Namco's latest entry in the beloved RPG series a beautifully realized world with a story that isn't afraid to tackle heavy subjects, adding that it's an easy recommendation to anyone who's interested in diving into an expansive action RPG. Luke Riley awarded Hot Wheels Unleashed a 9. Luke thought the toyetic arcade racer was highly customizable, buoyantly uncynical, and surprisingly brilliant, adding that it defies all expectations with remarkable attention to detail, excellent track design, and an accessible handling model that rewards high skill. Matt Purslow gave Deathloop a 10 out of 10, a masterpiece and IGN's highest honor. He called the unique high-concept time-bending action shooter game a new high watermark for developer Arcane and one of the most confidently designed games he's ever played. So yeah, play Deathloop. And that was every video game that IGN reviewed in September. That was a lot. What was your favorite game of the month? Which upcoming game for the next month are you looking forward to? Let us know in the comments below. And for all things reviews and reviews in review, stick with IGN.